This is the reading of Appian Roman History, Book 13. Gaius Gracchus, whom had made himself popular as a triumvirate, which is the three public offices responsible for overseeing administrative departments, stood for tribuneship. Tribuneships looked out for like the ordinary people. He was Gaius Gracchus was the younger brother of Tiberius Gracchus, the originator of the law. He had kept silent concerning the killing of his brother for some time, but as some of the Senate treated him disdainfully or contemptibly, he offered himself as a candidate for the tribuneship, and as soon as he was elected for high office, began to intrigue against the Senate. He proposed that a monthly distribution of grain should be made to each citizen at the expense of the state. This had not been the custom prior to this. This had never happened before. This was also one of his many reforms. Thus he put himself at the head of populace at a bound by one stroke of politics in which he had the assistance of Fulvius Flaccus, who was another Roman senator and an important ally of the Gracchi. Right after this, he was elected tribune for the next year also, for in cases where there were not enough candidates, the law permitted the people to fill out the list from those in office. In this way, Gaius Gracchus became tribune a second time. After, so to say, buying the plebs, he began to court the equites, who held the rank midway between the Senate and the plebs, by another similar stroke of politics. He handed over the courts of justice, which had become distrusted on account of bribery from the senators, to the equites, upbraiding the senators particularly for recent instances of Auricota, Salinator, and thirdly Minas Aquilius, the one that conquered Asia, all shamelessly bribe takers who had been set free by the judges, which means they had like no consequences for this, even though envoys sent to denounce or like publicly declare to be wrong, them were still present, going about making disgraceful charges against them. The Senate was very much ashamed of such things and agreed to the law, and people passed it, so they finally took their ownership of what they did. Thus, the courts of justice were handed over from the Senate to the knights, so that you can see a change in power right there. It is important that soon after the enactment of this law, Gracchus made the remark that he had destroyed the supremacy of the Senate once and for all. And this remark of his has been confirmed by experience throughout the course of history. The privilege of judging all Romans and Italians, even the senators themselves, in all affairs of property, civil rights, and exile, raised the equites like governors over them, and placed the senators on the same plane as subjects, as the equites also voted to support the power of the tribunes, similar to a democracy, in the comitia, and received whatever they asked from them in return. They became more and more dangerous opponents to the senators. So as the equites are now gaining more and more power as they go on. Thus, it soon resulted that the power in the state was reversed, the real mastery going into the hands of the equites, and only the honor to the Senate. The equites went so far in using their power over the Senate to openly mock them beyond all reasons. So as you can see, like they're overusing the power just to mock the senators for no reason. They too imbibed or like absorbed the habit of bribe taking, and after once tasting such immense acquisitions, they drained the draft even more shamefully and recklessly than the senators had done. So after a while, they started getting bribed by people also, which led them to fail just as bad as the senators, or even worse. They hired informers against the rich and put an end to prosecutions for bribe taking entirely, partly by united action and partly by actual violence. So they stopped this in two different ways, not just one, so that the pursuit of such investigations was done away with, with entirely. Thus, the judiciary law started another factional contest that lasted for a long time and was fully as harmful as the previous ones. So, as you can see, there hasn't been really much improvement and still dangerous. And yeah. So another reform here: Gracchus constructed long hallways of Italy, and thus made an army of contractors and workmen dependent on his favor and rendered them subject to his every wish. He proposed the establishment of a number of colonies. He prompted the Latin allies to clamor or shout loudly for all the privileges of Roman citizenship, for the Senate could not becomingly deny them to the kinsmen or blood relatives of the Romans. He attempted to give the right to vote to those allies that were not permitted to take part in Roman elections, so as to have their assistance in the passing of measures that he had in mind. So this is another reform that he made, one of his many reforms. The Senate was greatly anxious at this and commanded the consuls to set forth the following proclamation. As they say here in quotes, no one that does not have the right to vote shall remain in the city or come within 40 stadios of it. During the time that the voting is taking place upon these laws, the Senate also got Livius Dryas, another tribune, to intercede or intervoke his veto against the measures brought forward by Gracchus without telling the plebes his reasoning for so doing. For a tribune did not have to give his reasons for a veto. So as you can see, Gracchus is using his power to do things that he believes needs to be done and is the right thing to do. In order to curry favor with the plebes, they gave Drusus permission to found 12 colonies, and the people were so much taken with this that they began to jeer at the measures that Gracchus proposed. So, continuing on with Book 13, we have three questions. The first one is, why did Gaius Gracchus destroy the supremacy of the Senate? So, as it says here, Gracchus made the remark that he had destroyed the supremacy of the Senate once and for all, and this remark of his has been confirmed by experience throughout the course of history. So, before this, the Senate were using their power just to do whatever they want. They were getting bribed by many people just to do things certain ways so it can benefit them, and they were doing this because of money or whatever they wanted, which is basically being bribed. So this was really affecting Roman Roman like power and supremacy, which is the reason why Gaius Gracchus had to destroy this, because to make all people fair and not just one, like the one people, which is the Senate, get more power than others. The second is, were the Equites involved in the act of bribe taking? So to answer that question, yes, they were. It says here, they too imbibed it in the habit of bribe taking, and after once tasting such immense acquisitions, they drained the draft even more shamefully and recklessly than the senators had done. They hired informers against the rich and put an end to prosecutions for bribe taking entirely. So they basically got bribed the same way as the senators, but they had they had seen what happened already, so you would think they would have more confidence, but no. Once they realized the amount of money and benefits they can make from bribery just to do what people wanted to do, they still did it, and shamefully they fell even worse than the senators. But it soon ended. Like later towards the end of the paragraph, they say that the end of prosecutions for Bob taken entirely and partly by united action and partly by actual violence, so that the pursuit to such investigations was done away with entirely. So they took many steps in Roman history to destroy Barbary. It required united unite united people come together to stop them, and also it took a little bit of violence to like end it too, but it all came ended up well. The third one is name one social reform from this passage. So to me, I think one of the most important reforms is one of the last ones he states: Roman elections, so as to have their assistance in the passing of measures that he had in mind. The senator was greatly perturbed at this and commanded the consuls to set forth the following proclamation: No one that does not have the right to vote shall remain in the city or come within 40 stadias of it during the time of that the voting is taking place upon these laws. So this is an important reform because it kind of like changed the way of Roman history, as you can see. So Gracchus, he called in Livius Drusus, he's another tribune, and to intercede his veto. And he did this without telling the plebs about it, anybody to have any other opinion, because he had power like that where he can do what he can call somebody in to and veto a law without the people's permission. He also ordered Drusus to found 12 colony to make 12 colonies, and the people were so much taken with this that they began to jeer at it. So that obviously shows that the people were okay with it, or yeah, they were okay with it.